Hey everybody, it's Leslie from Your Yummy Tummy Chef, and we are today going to be doing a cooking show to do an all-American apple pie. And I'm doing this in honor of our upcoming holiday, Thanksgiving. Okay, we shall get started. For this apple pie, we need to have the following things. We need to have some flour and sugar and very cold chilled butter, unsalted by the way, and we need 4 medium apples. It should be Macintosh apples. You're going to need some cinnamon and some cornstarch, some oats, the old-fashioned rolled oats. You're going to need some, I think that's it. So let's get started. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the crust, because the crust needs to actually be chilled for about at least 20 minutes, if not, if you want to, overnight. And in order for us to go on with the pie while that's chilling, we're going to be cutting up the apples and peeling them and getting them ready for the filling of the apple pie. Okay, so in order to make our crust, when you're making any kind of a crust, you need to use cold ingredients, because if you use soft butter or warmed butter, it's just not, the crust is going to come out more flaky, and if you overwork your dough, it's just going to kind of be more melted than it will be a firm crust. So here we go. This is 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and I'm going to put the lid on my now, if you don't have a food processor, you can always use a bowl. You can put your flour and your butter and your sugar into a bowl, like a regular bowl, and use a pastry blender, which I will show you in a second, which looks like this right here. And you just kind of like go like this and chop the butter into like crumb-like pieces. When you get to the point where it's crumbs, looks like little crumbs, that's when you can take it out of the bowl and start to knead it so that it turns into the dough, and then you'll roll it out, and that will be the other method that you can use. Okay, so I'm going to start my food processor here, and it's just kind of, for now, I'm just mixing up the flour. And while it's doing that, I cut up the butter so that it's in these little cubes. I'm just going to toss this in there. A little bit more. This is 3 tablespoons of flour. Very cold. Just let that go for a little while until I start to see that it's coming up a little bit on the crumbly side, which it is starting to do. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of very cold water to this. So this is 4 tablespoons, actually, right here in this thing. You want to just kind of add it very gradually. That's 2 tablespoons right there. And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm actually going to stop this right now. I'm going to take this off, and I want you to take a look and see what this looks like. That's if I can get this off. It's stuck there. Okay, there we go. And you can see, if you look inside here, that it's full of crumbs. But what I want to do is I want to get some of the flour that's along the sides there incorporated. So I'm going to get a spatula from over here, a handy dandy spatula. I'm just going to go around the edges of this, because you can see there still is a lot of flour here that didn't get processed. So kind of mixing that up a little bit. I'm using the dough blade, by the way, not the sharp one. So if you have your own food processor at home, that's what you need. Obviously, this is the quicker method, right? And here we go. I'm pulsing it right now. You want to be very careful when you're making a dough, a pie crust. Okay, this is done. And I'm going to turn it out onto my surface. But what I'm going to do before I do that is I'm using a special disc here. This is a rubber disc, and it has on it, around the rings, you can see there's different measurements. So if you want to have like a 9-inch pie crust or a 12-inch pie crust or a 14-inch pie crust, it gives you guidelines here. I don't necessarily need that. I just need to know that the thickness is going to be about this thick, like this. So I'm going to take this out. And you clean as you go. So I'm just going to plop this into the sink. And I'm going to get a piece of plastic. So I happen to have a marble pastry board. I'm going to actually go over to my marble pastry board and I'm going to roll out the dough over there. All right, we ready here? Now, here's the crumbs. As you can see, it looks like crumbs there. But when you put it together, not so crummy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and actually what I think I might do, is I might actually put this in a bowl and just give it a little bit more. But I don't want to blend it too much in the food processor, so I'm just going to throw this stuff into the bowl. So give me a second. I'll be right back. Okay, I believe that's about it. So here are the crumbs. See, it looks like breadcrumbs, only it's actually pie crumbs. All right, but I'm going to have to add a little bit of water here to this because, and like I said, remember, it's got to be cold, ice cold, and this is pretty cold. So I'm just adding another tablespoon. You do it just ever so much because you don't want it to get like sticky gooey because that won't really help you much. So here I am, I'm just kind of like putting it together, trying to get it all to be solid, getting all those crumbs all in one piece so we don't have a pie shell, a pie crust of 1,000,000 crumbs. That would be very funny, wouldn't it? The 1,000,000 crumb pie crust. Okay, so this is just about where it needs to be. I might need to add just a little bit more water to it, but you can see it's coming together like this. But there still is a lot of crumbs on the bottom here, so I want to get those incorporated as well. So I'm just going to add a teeny bit more water, just a drop. Whoops, crumb just went flying. Never had that happen before. Okay, so now we're done with this. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to take a piece of plastic film, put it down on my pastry board. I'm going to make a ball out of this. And then get off of there. It's like on my glove. And I'm just using gloves because I don't want my hands to get dirty. I'm just getting the rest of the crumbs out of here. Okay, so here we go. Here's a ball, right? Nice little ball. There you go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on this plastic film. And I'm going to flatten this out so that it's a disc. Remember, you don't want to work this dough too much because otherwise it will be mushy. It will not be a flaky crust, it'll be like a melted mush. So I'm going to make this as flat as I can. You know, sometimes you can taste it. You can taste the pie crust, even when it's in this form. And you know, just based on that it's gonna be a delicious pie crust. So then I cover it over with the film. It doesn't have to be a very neat looking, but it does have to be a disc. And I would say this is about maybe a 1/2 inch thick. All right, so there we go. I'm going to stick this in the fridge. Okay, so we're now going to get to the point where we're cutting apples. We have our apples here, and I have a certain method that I use to core and peel the apples. So I'm going to first cut them in half right where the stem is. And so you can see they're perfectly cut in half. You can even see some of the stems sticking out over here. All right, then I use a melon bowler. I tend to use the smaller part of the melon bowler, and I just scoop out the seeds on both sides. Sometimes you get the core involved and it gets a little bit chunky, but these are McIntosh apples, incidentally, which are really good to bake with because they end up getting nice and soft, but they don't lose their firmness, but they just have the right consistency. Okay, so then we take, and be very careful when you do this. I don't want to hear anybody sending me messages, oh my God, I cut off my hand when I was trying to core these apples. So just be careful with the knives. Then the next the next step is to peel the apples. And it really is easier this way. Honestly, it really is. And we're just going to go all the way around. Now you see there's some bruising here going on. It's unavoidable. You'll find that. Nature isn't perfect, right? Well, maybe it is sometimes. But we like things that are perfect and imperfect. I'm going to do the same thing to this. Once more. And here's my dump tray, remember? And incidentally, I love this peeler that I have. It's an OXO? Yes, OXO product. And it's just the best because they're very, very sharp. And I've never, ever had to buy another one, except for the one time, I can't believe I did this, when in my dump tray, I put the peeler, and then I threw out everything that was in the dump tray, including my peeler. So I had to go and get another peeler. All right, we're done with that. Now, we're going to cut this up into slices. I mean, not slices, but wedges. So we're not going to make these really, really thick wedges, but I would say like about that thick. I'll do that again. See? About 1/4 inch. Or you can make it less. We're going to slice it straight through. And when we're done, as you can see, this is what it looks like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump all of this into my handy dandy bowl here. You can see. I'm going to do the other apple. And it's important to make sure that you have the same thickness throughout the whole apple, because when you have something that's not the same thickness, it's going to cook longer and there will be an inconsistency with your apples. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this lemon. I'm going to put some lemon juice in with the apples so they don't start turning brown. Okay, so we're at the point where we're gonna start to mix our apples together, and then eventually, when that's done, we're gonna take out the pie dough, roll it out, and put it into the pie shell. So I'm gonna take it and put it into our pie plate, and for that I have this deep dish pie plate. It's made of stone. It's a stone one, and very appropriately colored burgundy for the fall, right? All right, so we mix together a quarter of a cup of cornstarch and a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I put in like a smidge of nutmeg, a smidge, like I would say less than a quarter of a teaspoon, like just a smidge, just sprinkle it in there, just a teeny bit of ground cloves, and a teeny bit of ginger. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. So we've got the cornstarch, the ginger, there's the little specks of cloves. Cloves are very strong, so, and here's the cinnamon, and I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg to that so that it looks like, literally, I mean a little. That was even too much, probably. Oh, you can smell it. It smells so good. And I'm also going to add like just a pinch of salt to this. So where's my salt? I'm never going to find my salt when I need it. I'm just going to, like literally, this much salt. That's it. Just a sprinkle. Because it gives it a little bit of tanginess to it. Just a teeny bit. Then I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to mix it all up here. So, as you can see, nice and blend. You can use a whisk with this if you wish. Just make sure it's kind of nice and blended all together. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to throw this onto the apples. It's good if it's mixed up. Oh God, this smells so good. So good. Oh, and I forgot, 2 tablespoons of sugar. So all together we have a quarter cup of cornstarch and half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a smidge of ginger, and a smidge also of cloves and nutmeg. Okay, it's all ready. So now I'm going to throw all that in here, into my bowl, just like that. Now the apples, what starts to happen when you start mixing them is they start to secrete some water, some moisture from the apples, and it creates this kind of nice little slurry, this I can't think of the word for it. The apples have some moisture in it, so when you start mixing in the cornstarch and the other spices into this, plus the sugar, the water that's emitted from the apples creates kind of like a little sauce for the apples. So when you're putting it in the pie, that's when you see that it's not just apples, dried apples from baking them. It's actually apples and you know, all that juice that comes from it. So I'm going to get my handy dandy spatula. Incidentally, this is one of my son's favorite things to eat. He loves, I mean loves apple pie. He, in fact, for his birthday, he wanted an apple pie for his birthday. Quote, cake. A birthday apple pie, which I gladly made for him. Oh, boy, if you can smell this right now, it smells so good. And I don't know if you can see this, but see how it's kind of like getting a little bit goopy? Like around the edges? See that? I'm just going to keep on mixing it until it's all coated. can see that it is getting there. Be careful when you're mixing it so as to not break the slices like I have done. Although it all goes into the pie and nobody's going to really know for sure if that was you or if that was the baking process, but you know it was me. Okay, so now on to the pie dough. By now, hopefully, it's gotten nice and firm and chilled enough in the refrigerator. Now I'm putting together the topping, which is 1/3 of a cup of oats, 5 tablespoons of flour, so we have in here 5 tablespoons of flour, 1/3 cup of oats, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of melted butter, which I'm going to put into here. Okay, so I'm just going to run and get my spoon. Oh, I'm also going to add a little pinch of cinnamon to this. So here goes a little pinch of cinnamon too. Oops. Actually, took off the cap so I could get, okay, just a teeny pinch. That's it. So here we have it. That's what it looks like. I'm going to give it a quick, I'm just going to blend it together so that, when you put the butter in, you don't want it to like be gloppy and make these big lumps of flour. Ooh. So, okay, now this is nicely mixed up. I'm going to throw in the butter. In it goes. We're going to try to get every little bit out of there. Incidentally, when I'm cooking, I try to use as many organic ingredients as I can, because I really do believe that when you're cooking, you're using food that's going into your body. Well, it should be really good food. You don't want to put any crap in your body, right? So that's not good. All right, so here I am, stirring away. And the idea is to make these kind of lumps that are going to go right on top of, I'm using my finger, of this. So I want this to go back in there because I want it to get more lumpy. Sometimes you might need a little extra butter to help it along. Because you want to get all of those nice ingredients together into the butter. You want the butter to take up, to create these big crumbs. All right, so that's aside. We're going to put that aside. Then we're going to take our dough, which was in the fridge, and it's gotten kind of, can you hear that? Okay, so now I'm going to unwrap the film, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually now you could do this in one of two ways. You can either use something like this, or you could use something like this. This is going to go over the size of the film, the plastic film, probably over this way, because we have to put it into this right here, right? So we have to make sure there's enough dough to go around so that it will work. So as it happens, I actually switched from the other pie plate to this one because this one is not as deep as the other one was. Maybe a little bit wider, but it's not as deep. And I'm just concerned that I'm not going to have enough of a crust that's going to be on the top. So that's why I switched. And here we go. So I have here my pie dough on this plastic film, as you can see. I'm going to put under that this rubber mat that I have specifically for rolling out dough. And then I'm going to put another piece of plastic film over that. So give me a second. Don't you hate it when you get this plastic stuff and it's just like it doesn't come out smooth and you always have to like deal with that? All right, here we go. I want it to be as far out as possible so that it doesn't overlap. All right, so I'm take my rolling pin and I'm just gonna, push it out. Now remember, this was in the refrigerator, so it got nice and hard. But that's what you want. You want it to be hard. We want this to be as far as we can go out to the edges. It's probably going to end up being about 1/8 of an inch round. Here we go, we're getting to the edges here. Because we have to fill this whole thing up here. The reason why you have 2 sheets of plastic here is because it makes it very much easier to transfer once you've rolled out the dough. Dough. Onto into the pie plate. Every once in a while you have to kind of like push your plastic over a little bit. As it gets tucked under. You can avoid all of this and just buy store-bought, but since I'm making an apple pie from scratch, I figured I might as well make the dough as well. Okay, we're getting to the end here. Hopefully this will about cover it. Wish I had a smaller pie plate for this. That would be better. I hope everybody out there in YouTube land and or those of you watching this video are safe and healthy and taking care of yourselves and being considerate of other people that are equally taking care of themselves. And I hope a lot of you people are being cautious. And someday soon, hopefully, we'll have our country back to normal, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. Okay, so here we have it. Here's the pie, and here's the plastic. So let's just give it a try here and see how far we've got with this. So it still doesn't cover it because it's still too deep. I'm wondering if I have another pie plate. Think about that. You can see I'm trying to keep it as close to a circle shape as possible while I'm rolling this out. Okay, let's give this another shot. Well, that's a little better. Okay. So now what we do is we take off the top piece. This is the tricky part. Then you take the bottom piece, you put your hand under, and you want to try to center this as much as you can into the pie plate. Now, if you don't get it right the first time, you can gingerly pick it up, just kind of recenter it. And what I would do is I'm just going to push it over to the side as much as I can to make this pie crust go up a little bit around the edges. And you might have a little more dough on one side than you do on the other. That's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cut and paste. Not in the way you think I'm going to cut and paste. And so we can get maybe a little bit of a fluted edge going on. This is very, very thin. But that's okay. All right. So you can see over here, there's a little bit, we got a little bit of pie dough over here, so I'm just going to get a knife and cut a little bit of that off. And so I have this extra dough. I'm going to kind of just patch it in to places where I think it's just a little bit too thin. It needs a little bit more. And honestly, it's not that critical for you to have the pie crust. I mean, it's better if when you cut it, because you'll be able to cut it, but you want to have it cover at least the sides of the pie plate. Okay, here we go, all done. Now, this is the fun part. So we take our apples, and I'm just gonna toss this in here. See, it's got all that juice. Just want to show you all this juice. You see that juice? There. See that? Okay, that's all gonna go in here. Okay, so I'm just topping this with the crumbs made from the oats. Remember, the oats and the butter and the sugar and the flour. One got away. Another one got away. Okay, I'm just gonna scrape off the spoon, and wherever it seems like it's not covering, we're gonna kind of cover it. There. Now I preheated my oven. It's at 400, and as soon as it's ready, we're going to pop it in. And what I like to do is I like to kind of, I put a baking sheet underneath this just in case it bubbles all over, and so that we can get, catch those juices and it doesn't ruin your oven or create problems for your oven. Okay, voila! Now it's ready to go into the oven. So I like to put the pie onto a baking tin like this, just so in case the juices bubble over, it catches it. Okay, I'm putting it into the oven now. So we're going to open the oven. It's at 400 degrees. I'm putting it on the middle shelf. And that's it.